G'day everyone. I'm wondering if you know anyone who could explain to you the miracles like the ones outlined in the Bible from a perspective of using modern physics to explain how they could come about. Well, I think that I can actually go ahead and do that. I went through the Bible and I saw about 400 different kinds of miracles, and I was able to go through and categorize them into about 7 different types of miracles. The first one, which kind of stands a bit alone, was the creation. And if you want to sort of have me explain that a little bit more, I can do that at some stage in the future. And that would be sort of using sort of string theory and sort of the whole concept of membranes, and if there were God, or if you're one of the scientific type people who says, I don't believe that there is any God, to be able to talk about some super advanced space alien who would be able to be there and manipulate the various membranes to be able to come together to be able to create the universe that way. There are other explanations as well using inflationary cosmology, but I can get onto that at some other point if you guys have an interest. The second one is objects being moved, and I would see that to be something along the lines of Enoch. It said that Enoch was just walking along and then God took him and moved him somewhere else to be with him. Or an example would be like the burial of Moses, where it said, and no one knew where Moses was buried. That's because God just took him, or his body, never moved the dirt, and just buried him under the ground without ever disturbing the surface. The third type of miracle which I see are natural forces, and that would be something like Jericho, where the earth shook and the walls came tumbling down. Or Mount Sinai, where there was earthquakes and fire and various other natural forces that were involved. Or even the quail, which would be there and they were sort of picked up and carried along and deposited right when the Israelites wanted them to be there, and they sort of flew in from the coast. An example that I use almost every day would be playing Pocket God on the iPad, where I'm able to manipulate the forces around the poor little villages on the island and generally do bad stuff toward them. Occasionally I might be able to save them from a shark or something. The next kind of miracle, the fourth kind of miracle I would see, would be moving atoms. And that would be something like with Korah's rebellion, how the earth just opened up, they fell in, and it closed around them. Or something a little bit more exciting would be Elijah and the prophets of Baal. So the prophets of Baal were saying, hey, Baal, come on, send fire down, and nothing happened. And then Elijah just said, hey, God, show them who's God. Because the temperature is just the average speed of atoms. So if I'm able to move the speed of atoms faster, I'm able to increase the temperature. If God or some super space alien being were able to do that, then when Elijah said, God, show them who's God, he could move the atoms so rapidly that it would cause a plasma fire to come down and explode the altar and evaporate all of the water that was there. The next kind of miracle I see would be something that was planned in the past. A good example of that would be the quails, where the quails were there, and so when the Israelites said, hey God, give us some meat, we want to eat meat instead of this stinking manna, how God would have, perhaps a couple of days earlier, caused a wind to carry the quails over, so that he planned that in the past. Because if there were some God or some super space alien being who knew time, or if they were a time traveler, this person would be able to create the events that you see. Another miracle which I see would be where the mind was altered, something like the Tower of Babel, where people are now no longer able to communicate. And it's interesting that languages still are divergent. So instead of our languages all coming together where we speak one language, you get a group of kids and a group of adults, and then all of a sudden the language continues to diverge even to this day. Another example would be Midian, where they're defeated with 0 casualties. This could be brought about by just sort of getting the person to become distracted or something like that. We as humans can do that these days. We've got Linux, or Linux for you Americans, and there is a program you can get which will control fruit flies. And we just use 2 simple lasers, and you can make them walk backwards, you can make them flap their wings, You can make them walk in random patterns instead of their usual sort of systematic patterns. And you can even make them believe that they're mating with a piece of wax. And so we can do that. So how much more could God or some super advanced space alien do with that? And then the last kind of miracles, which I really want to focus on, are strings and changing atoms and modifying forces. So as an example, God would be able to be there, or some super space alien would be able to create light, energy, and magnetism out of nothing. Nothing at all. And think about like the burning bush. I don't know if that's what it was, but God would be able to do something along those lines just by manipulating strings. Another thing would be that he would be able to create forces out of absolutely nothing. So, as an example, gravity, slowing the movement of a weapon arm of one of the Midianites so that he would not kill that Israelite. God would be able to make gravity disappear, or almost. Imagine Samson as he's carrying off those huge gates, probably stronger, much heavier than even with his strong muscles he would be able to do, and perhaps that was one reason why he was able to do that. One thing I find very intriguing would be God or some super space alien breaking atoms apart and reassembling the components to create new ones. What about water to wine, creating something just out of nothing, like taking the fishes and the bread when he fed the 5,000. So I see lots and lots of different exciting possibilities about explaining these things. If you guys have an interest and you want to hear more, just like down here, and I'll be able to go ahead and create some more. I was there and I did this presentation. It took me about an hour, about 5 years ago. And people were there and just said, dude, you need to do something with this. And so here I am, just starting out. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch you again sometime soon.